Borderlands is one of those games where you're a killer sent to do killing things, and almost all of it revolves around shooting stuff. That's my favorite type of gameplay. With such a diverse array of weapons, 4 unique classes, and hundreds of hours of content, there isn't much not to love from Borderlands 3. Borderlands 3 is one of my favorite games right now, and I felt it deserved a video on it. So much that I learned how to use a video editing software. Please be kind, this is my first heavily edited video, so it took so many hours to make this. When looking at Borderlands 3, I decided to break it up into several categories that would help audience members get a clear understanding of the strengths and weaknesses that accompany this game, including gameplay and player characters, world and sound design, plot, and endgame content. I'll be going through them one by one, discussing my thoughts on each of the categories. Without further ado, let's get started. To say that Borderlands feels nice to play would be a gross understatement. Borderlands 3 expanded on the mobility aspect from 2 and incorporated mantling. This simple mechanic made the concept of exploring other regions more open to the player, though sometimes frustrating. It often felt like I should be able to go a certain way or mantle up onto an area only to be cut off by invisible walls or fall to my doom. Ultimately, I like the change though, and I love satisfying my need to search every dark corner of the map. Along with mantling, sliding makes an appearance. Something fun to do while you're just running along, knock up a bandit or two and shoot them in the air, stuff like that. There's a relic called the Snowdrift that makes sliding far faster, delivering different ways to navigate around the maps. Some characters have synergy with this, but I'll save on that for later. I didn't find myself using the slide too often, but there was, again, synergy with specific relics that I know I could have used, and that choice is what makes it relevant to the metagame. Another interesting yet rather underwhelming change was how barrels work. Instead of hoping your enemy would happen to line up or stand next to a barrel, you now have the option to smack or slide into it, sending it flying towards where you want. The barrels would explode on me every so often because the AI liked to be nice and miss every now and then, often defeating the purpose, but its niche uses were welcome and enjoyable. Slamming was the last major mechanic added into the game. Slamming isn't all that impressive, without relics to help back up the ability, but it can pack a punch at any opportunity. It always felt great to jump down and smash on someone's head, but that being said, without the proper relics to support it, it just felt useless in the late game. But this just pales in comparison to the changes to the weapon manufacturers. If you're like me, you like changes to gameplay. Every time a new expansion for World of Warcraft came out, I'd always look forward to relearning my class by trying out new, unique playstyles and rotations. Imagine my surprise when I was met with completely different perks for each weapon style. Vladoff, my favorite manufacturer, kept the high magazine size and fire rate, but also included barrels that have unique properties. My favorite are snipers with RPGs attached, but you can find an assault rifle with a free shotgun underneath, because I never use shotguns, unless the shotgun shoots saw blades. Some guns would have grenade launcher attached, used to send your enemies flying. I love this change because the simple magazine size and fire rate increase, while nice, wasn't game changing or interactive like this is. Jacobs, my next favorite manufacturer, kept the higher average damage with lower magazine size, fast as you can fool with the trigger style, and non-elemental focus, although there are a few unique Jacobs weapons that do have elemental effects, which makes them far more viable in the late game. But added the effect as well of having crit shots bounce to another target, making them fun to use on everyone and seeing if you could kill an enemy by only shooting his friends. Another great addition, as it made the weapon feel more interactive and silly. I have to give the next spot to Dahl for making me feel like a Marine. Their guns are now characterized by having 2 modes of fire instead of just burst fire while zoomed in, and usually having different scopes for each firing type. I felt like a badass whenever I swapped the sights and picked off someone from afar and swapped back and hit the next guy at close range. Overall, it's a unique gameplay element from this game series, and I was always envious of seeing it in other titles. Each of the other guns didn't seem to pique my interest as much, but they all had their niche uses. Molly 1 had its elemental advantages primed to the maximum and offered a dual elemental style when firing, kind of like Dahl's fire modes except with elements. My favorite combination would be radiation and corrosive. Corrosive to take care of the armored targets and radiation for those pesky shields and soft flesh. Early on, I was confused about which weapons would be full-on laser style weapons like in the pre-sequel, but I figured it out eventually. I'm just a bit slow. Hyperion manufactured weapons were the type I found myself using more often in the early game. Their weapons kept the accuracy boost the longer you held down the trigger and added a shield whenever you looked down the sights. Useful for noobs such as myself, but my other friends who play the game say they rarely look down the sights at all. The only disappointing thing from this game is that they removed Hyperion pistols. Those had some interesting legendaries and effects that, while cool in other guns, don't always feel the same. Atlas was the new manufacturer, and I was underwhelmed by them at first, but had great joy with them near the beginning of my second playthrough. They are characterized by firing tracking darts, and that could be a grenade, bullet, or otherwise. If you land that shot, the target will be marked, and all shots fired will find their way to your target, even if you're a bad shot. Ultimately, unfortunately, a lot of them have low fire rates, and rarely come in elements, which I dislike, and I didn't use them all that often. Their utility is great, but I'm an idiot, and I like fast firing things, and I want to fire it all the time. The more lead I can get out, the better. The last three manufacturers I never really used in the game. It's not that they're bad, but I never found the want to use them because I just had so much fun with the others. That being said, please don't let that stop you from enjoying these welcome changes. Tor kept the explosive rounds for their guns, but added stickies, like an alternate fire mode. These stickies would all detonate if you swap weapons or reloaded. It's definitely a balanced idea there. Imagine being able to stockpile them and then just swap to another weapon. While I didn't use it much, I tried out a few times and had a few laughs at stupid bandits walking over my very obvious death trap. The best part is that these traps have bonuses applied to them. The more stickies you have, the more damage it'll do. Boom! Burst! Bam! TDR. Did you want a weapon with legs? Of course you did. TDR has you covered. TDR kept their unique reload antics, such as throwing your gun like it was a grenade to reload, but also added things like, again, the guns with legs. A little shoot me sign appearing above the gun when you reload to detonate it whenever you want. Bouncing guns. Little flavor sounds too when you throw them. Yeet! And lastly, we have the COV weapons. These are the garbage weapons of the game, at least in my opinion. I think that some people might enjoy them because they have endless mags and their potential to fire as much as they want, except for the stupid overheat meter. But I just couldn't get into that. They felt like the bandit weapons from Borderlands 2, and I never liked those either. I received a blue COV weapon near the beginning of the game, thought it used its own ammo, ran out of pistol ammo, was butthurt about it, and never used them again. It's my fault, and I'm aware of that, but I'm currently still holding a grudge against any COV weapons. What's that? It's an upgrade? Wrong. Sell. Relics are much more diverse than in Borderlands 2. The legendary versions of them have prefixes and suffixes. Prefixes are effects from common artifacts, and the suffixes are the legendary effects. However, the legendary effects are somewhat lacking. Many of them don't hold up in the late game, and don't provide good perks. As such, it makes it more difficult for people to think about which ones would be the best for their class. As of right now, I'm hoping that they expand more on this, because I'm really not as satisfied as I would like to be about it. For vehicles, Borderlands 3 added another type of vehicle to the mix, the Cyclone, alongside the standard Outrunner and Bandit Technical. The Outrunner is a classic, and everyone uses that until they get the Cyclone, the clearly superior choice. While the Outrunner provides a little bit of everything and the Technical is for raw power and defense, the Cyclone just says, screw that, let's go fast. Aside from now and then quests requiring me to use the Outrunner or Technical, I hardly ever use those vehicles over the Cyclone. Even on Carnivora, I found myself still using it. Honestly, I both like and dislike the cosmetics from this game. The skin changes are just color palette swaps, and I was disappointed about that. The heads are still cool, but without something to complement them, they often feel just silly. And sure, Borderlands 2's cosmetics were also silly, but it had something to complete the design. Weapon skins are great, and the trinkets are alright, but then there are some things that I never use. I don't taunt, and I don't look at my echo very often, at least not directly. Sure, I'll use the echo, but that's about it. Overall, a decent addition, but I don't think anybody was over the roof excited for this. Definitely not a game changer. A great strength of the Borderlands series has been delivered through its unique characters. Each of the 4 characters you can choose from all have unique abilities and distinctive traits to separate each other. The classic Sniper-esque character, Flak, is a Beastmaster that has a choice between 3 different action skills, as well as a little pet to help you along the way. Each pet has their own niche benefits, the Jabber having ranged fire and offering more mobility, the Skag offering more damage output, and the Spider Ant offering more resistances and utility. The unique thing about Flak is that those aren't his abilities, they're inherent to his class, and his pet is always available, unless you let your pet die. Along with this, Flak gets a choice of 3 abilities, a cloaking ability that grants 3 guaranteed critical hits, an activated radiation ability that teleports his pet, doing damage and granting insane utility and damage to his pet, or a summon ability that fires racks from somewhere. Each of these abilities, as well as your companions, can be augmented to provide additional benefits for any situation. Flak is a great overall character that offers his group good utility and decent damage, but it always feels a bit weak. The best upside to Flak is how tanky he could be if he went down the middle tree, how surprisingly well he could destroy down the left tree, and how often I think I could click that ability button if I went down the right tree. Amara is the siren of the game. She has a blend of elemental damage mixed in with a tank. What makes her unique is the ability to change the elemental damage type of her abilities. Along with a powerful phase slam, an astral projection blast, or a phase grasp that locks enemies in place, she can change the elemental effect from shock to corrosive or incendiary. Amara plays like a tank and deals damage like one too. Regardless of which tree you go down, Amara has a playstyle for everyone. I personally enjoyed her middle tree the most because I like the idea of casting my ability twice on one cooldown. If you want to use your powers to bend the will of those around you with your phase abilities, choose Amara because she's the Hulk of Borderlands 3. Zane is the operative, and well deserving of that title. He offers the unique trait to choose 2 abilities, although you do have to give up your grenade for it. Still, this is worthwhile because Zane just feels great to play. His 3 abilities are Barrier, standard sounding, right? Plop down a shield, blocks attacks, and amps up your damage if you shoot through it. You can also pick it up, but it does lower some of the benefits. Second ability is the Sentinel, which is a drone that offers some assistance during the combat. It feels a great fantasy for the game to have this ability as his help. And lastly is Digiclone. It's probably the most interesting, but also the most difficult to use. I love trying to use this, but leveling up with it was a chore. I think that Zane personality is what most people are attracted to, or at least initially, even the clone. But I swapped off of it very quickly up until late game. The mobility offered by the clone is amazing, and the antics you can ensue with this ability are endless, not to mention the game-breaking hilarity if you screw up. Plop down a clone, do something dumb, swap places. He's my favorite character that I use the least. Moze is the type of character that you use when you want to get a job done. Her powerful mech is her ability. But what good would it be without a great arsenal? Her 3 abilities form the basis for her character, and you get a choice of 2. The best part that I totally knew about from the beginning is that you can have 2 of the same arms. Want 2 grenade launchers? Sure, go for it. Want to rain down bullets on all your enemies? 2 machine guns. Want a death laser that completely annihilates your enemies? Go ahead. Each arm comes with augments to increase their power in different ways, some for more damage, others for consistency, and a few for explosions! Moze lets you channel your inner Torg, if you so choose, and I so choose. Borderlands 3 is the most visually appealing of the series. I love looking at the world that Gearbox has created for us. The quests are great, offer tons of variety, and all have unique charm to them. The songs, as you've been hearing throughout the video, are engaging. I don't know much about music, but I know what type of music amps me up for a fight. Thematically, most fit pretty well. Floodmore Basin had the most interesting style to it, with its swampy atmosphere. Viridian Metroplex's theme had a futuristic synth-styled music with it, and the boss themes changed as the fights changed phases. Something I love in a game. Pokemon Sword and Shield did this, and the effect was just amazing. In a way to keep the world more interesting, the zones are populated with different hidden tasks. Most of these are stumbled upon or placed in areas where important quests are. These can help remind you of their presence if you forget, but offer tons of experience and even puzzles to solve. I use the word puzzle rather loosely. Typhon logs give more story, random cars to get more parts, assassination targets or hunting targets, radio stations, constructive vandalism, you name it. This game has it. This keeps the players on their toes, always on the lookout for unique things to do in the game. The game never forces you into doing this, and you're left to doing it at your own leisure. I never felt pressured into doing it, and instead I wanted to do it. They were fun enough to want to do on the next character, and rewarding enough too. The writing in this game is as good as ever. I love the pop culture references thrown into the game. Pain and Terror are a good parody of Penn and Teller. Mother of Gorgons is a reference to Game of Thrones, Heckle and Hyde or Jekyll and Hyde, and Rackman is of course Batman. The jokes are all funny, hardly ever dated, with a few exceptions, and punny. I won't go too much into this, as I want to focus more on the plot though. Where to start with the plot? Borderlands 3 takes place 7 years after Borderlands 2. What they've been doing in the interim is discussed loosely through holotapes found throughout the world. We end Borderlands 2, and technically the pre-sequel, being told that war is coming, and that we're going to need all the Vault Hunters that we can get, which I guess is 4? Let's just say they haven't been running it well. And this time, unbeknownst to the leader Lilith, a new cult has risen and banded together all the bandit clans under the name Children of the Vault. These children believe that their leaders, Troy and Tyreen, will be the two to open the Great Vault. The interesting thing about them is that they're both sirens. Troy is apparently more of a parasite to Tyreen, and she seems to steal most of the show in the first half of the game. As it progresses, Troy finds his voice through assertion. Sometimes it's interesting,
is awesome. We haven't really had a chance to get to know each other, huh? And Ty's been doing most of the talking. She does that, right? She's the center of the galaxy, and the rest of us just sort of orbit around her. But things are changing.
and other times it's not.
What? Got pouncers! Plumbing it in an abandoned mine. Alright, I gotcha. Well, just wanted to let you know that we're working on it.
I've got a big surprise for you. Huge reveal. You're gonna love it.
Troy, come on, we talked about this.
Anyway, the Great Vault beckons. Later, superfan.
Seems like a lot of others have a problem with Troy and Tyreen, which I don't see. They're likable villains in my eyes. Given what we find out later, it's almost understandable. I don't feel bad for them like I felt bad for Jack, but I understand how their upbringing shaped them into what they are today, similar to Jack. Their crude jokes are a result of their isolation, and their reliance on shallow friendships are a result of having no prior experience with how to deal with and appreciate others. They have themselves. And I love the sibling rivalry between them.
Troy! Did you hire the vault thief to help you? Wow, that is low, bro. That's off.
Oh, dip! Vault Thief killed Team Tyreen! In your face, Ty! All hail Good King Troy!
God King. Ugh, you know how that sounds, right? Hey, hey Troy. All your followers are like super duper dead. Just a little FYI.
Ty, the Vault Thief killed both of our teams.
Oh, butthurt alert!
The problems with the story come in when we look at how the two progress as characters. Throughout the entirety of the story, the word family is thrown around a lot. Like, a lot. We're given this idea that family is everything, and the twins expand on this all the time, but at the same time we're told that you should use your facets to your advantage and take anything you can, even if that means killing a member of your family. Troy eventually takes this to heart and continues to press his advantages over Tyreen until the climax of the story, the big fight against Troy and Tyreen, at least you think. Tyreen is being used for her power, and Troy almost kills her. The story seemed to be leading us to believe that Troy was going to be the ultimate villain, killing his sister to get the ultimate power. But this doesn't happen.
Ty. We were so close.
Hell?
You did it, Troy. Now let's finish this together.
Of course, she survives and he dies, and we're left to pick up the pieces as she now has all the power to herself. All of this completely goes against the dynamic they were setting up, and destroys what I thought was their one redeeming factor, family overall. My thought was that Troy would see the light and remember how much stronger they are as two, and having that kind of boss battle would be fun. I wanted to face them together at the end, and this stripped that away from me. A big letdown. I could talk about their father and how he plays a role in this, but he's more interesting as a character we only hear through recordings. If he had been dead, I'd actually be happier. I know that sounds mean, but it would have been better to learn all the information of his relationship with Troy and Tyreen through tapes, as well as documentation of the changes over time in their character, if they had done so. With the Typhon logs, they could have inserted bits of his family life throughout to show the neglect of his children and the problems he faced trying to keep them, as sirens, safe, especially after the death of his wife. This will give us an understanding into the moments where they had these issues, as well as show us how it affected the twins. Instead, what we have makes things more awkward between Typhon and our character.
Typhon. So, about Troy.
Yeah, listen. I know what's been going on out there. Troy and Tyreen, my kids, well, they became monsters. No other way to say it. Your fault, Hunter. You kill monsters. Simple as that.
I spent so long talking about the twins, I forgot to discuss the recurring and major characters on the good guy side. All the other characters push the family narrative as well. Lilith refers to those in the Crimson Raiders as part of a family, those willing to die to protect one another. Hammerlock attempts to humor Aurelia, which just gives her more time to be a Brick, Mordecai, and Tina are a great trio and act as a family, which is reflected in their dialogue. And even Reese admits that if his employees go, they all go. I'll give him points for that. But I'd be attacked if I didn't bring up the dirtiest thing of Borderlands 3, Maya and Ava. Maya was a powerful siren and a playable character from Borderlands 2. She returns with an apprentice in this game, Ava, who isn't a siren, but Maya has a good feeling about her. Maya dies relatively quickly into the story, and her death has little impact behind making Ava more of an annoying. You hate to have the whiny character who acts all tough but can't put up trying to motivate other characters. It doesn't matter if she's eventually going to be a siren. She's annoying, and writing annoying characters doesn't make us like them. It makes us hope that they also die. I try to shoot her at least once every time I see her in the hope that it actually works. I need to stop talking about her, so I just get frustrated when I do. Lastly, it was disappointing to see so few characters return from Borderlands 2, or the complete disregard of the events from the Tales of the Borderlands in regards to Reese. I was also slightly dissatisfied with how they handled Aurelia's character, but I've already been talking about the plot long enough. While Borderlands 3's life cycle is far from complete, Gearbox has done a great job at trying to keep the endgame fresh, with new content for the game releasing all the time, much of it free. At launch, the endgame wasn't very fleshed out. There were just some endgame missions, Circle of Slaughter and the Proving Grounds. These both consist of fighting hordes of enemies, with a fairly easy boss at the end. There's also Mayhem Mode. Mayhem Mode provides bonuses to the player when activated, such as more EXP, money, and Iridium. Mayhem Mode has several levels of difficulty, ranging from 1 to 4. Each level has different random modifiers that alter the gameplay. Usually, these modifiers give bonuses or penalties to certain things. However, Mayhem 4 differs from the other three. Mayhem 4 gives all enemies a ton more health, shields, and armor, and requires players to be at the top of their game to succeed. Mayhem Mode also allows weapons to drop with special bonuses called Anointments. Anointments are bonuses that are activated by doing different things while playing. There's anointments that activate while sliding or while airborne, when your action skill ends, or when a certain action skill is active, among others. There are certain anointments that are class specific as well, and can provide even crazier bonuses. For example, one of Flak's anointments is to give an extra charge of rack attack, and there are several other anointments that provide larger elemental bonuses. However, one issue with these anointments is the fact that they become basically necessary to succeed in the endgame, which is very frustrating considering it may be hard to get the best anointments. Gearbox has also added new free content to the game. They have two different types of free content, events and takedowns. Events, like Bloody Harvest and Valentine's Day event, are temporary events that you have to run around the galaxy doing a single mission over and over to get rewards. These events also add exclusive legendaries, and the Bloody Harvest event even added unique anointments to their weapons, in a new area called Hack, where you fight Captain Haunt. However, these seasonal events have a major issue of being seasonal. They aren't around forever. They're also quite repetitive, being only one mission. The other type of free content are takedowns. Takedowns are rapid style missions where you take on an onslaught of enemies and a raid boss at the end of the mission. Currently, there's only one takedown, the Molly-One takedown. However, this takedown is a decent challenge on Mayhem 4, considering when you die, you get sent back to the beginning, and if your friends die, they're forced to spectate until the next checkpoint is opened. There is also a true takedown mode for an even greater challenge. True takedown mode makes the game scale to 4 players, even if there aren't 4 players present. This means much more enemies and harder bosses. These takedowns provide a good way of testing your build and honing your skills. Borderlands 3 offers the same experience as the previous titles, but adds more variability to the mix. While all of this might not be positive, the risks it takes make the game more interesting, complex, and meta-changing. Borderlands' extensive freedom and features makes this a game you can play for hundreds of hours. The story, while somewhat disappointing, is at least engaging, and begs you to keep playing to see where it takes you next. If you're looking for an epic co-op FPS ARPG, Borderlands 3 is the game for you. A quick shout out to the Gearbox team for making a great game, my boy Aurrickan for helping me make this video, and to you all for watching this video. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more videos like this. Have a good one.